Welcome back. Tonight is a two-in-one show on The Point of View. We just finished speaking to Ken Thompson, who is the CEO of Dalex. He says IMF is not the answer, e-levy is not the answer, look inwards. Next is a review of a poll that has set some tongues wagging. So Global Info Analytics has done their latest in a series of polls that they hope to do for the next few years. And it's touched on a number of things: the direction of the country, the views on corruption, economic well-being. They've even looked into the crystal ball for the two main political parties and who's going to lead them into 2024. They've done a test between Alan Kyerematen, Alhaji Bawumia, and some others on the MPP side, and John Mahama, Kwabena Dufo, and others on the NDC side. So Musa Dankwa is Executive Director of Global Info Analytics. He joined me to walk through some of the findings of this survey. You are welcome. Good evening.
Good evening, Bernard.
So your organization is called Global Info Analytics. So are you a polling agency or a research? What do you guys do?
We are typically a polling and market research organization.
Polling and market research?
Yes.
I see. So have you done any political polls prior to this one?
Oh, yes. I remember in 2019, we did a number of polls for Adenta constituency, Medina constituency, Krowo. We did one for Oslo seat,
Ablekuma West.
Ablekuma West. And we did some for Swami. We did some for Takrade. We did some for Isikadu Kitan.
So you've been doing polling for a while?
For a while.
Amazing.
And remember last year, before the elections, our poll was the last to be released on the 24th, 25th November 2020.
And what did your poll say?
It gave Nana Addo 50.4% outright win on the headline poll number. And our margin of error was 1.99%.
I see. But did you predict that Parliament to be hung? Or you didn't do a parliamentary poll?
We predicted a number of seats in Greater Accra. We hadn't done what we call a global parliamentary seat analysis.
All right.
But we focused on Greater Accra, and all our predictions, apart from Ayawasu West Wagon and Domin Kwabena, came true.
Okay, those were only two you got wrong?
Yes.
I also was going Domin Kwabena.
Yes.
Great. This is your latest poll. What is it? What did you seek to do?
Now, we have kept faith with the Ghanaian public that we're going to give them an independent polling for the next coming years with regards to governance issues and also election matters.
Okay.
So this particular poll was conducted to give us a baseline.
Okay.
For us to be able to go back to the same locations and track what is happening in those locations over time.
I see.
More importantly, as we approach the NDC MPP primaries, what are people saying? And beyond the primaries, we will recalibrate and change approach as well. So
where did you ask people questions? How many people did you question? What sampling methodology did you use?
Okay, we sampled 2,422 people. And we used a confidence interval of 95%, and then a margin of error of 1.99%.
I see.
Because we're not predicting anything, we didn't want to squeeze the confidence interval to 99% because it's not a prediction model.
Okay.
So this just to give a rough idea of what people are saying. So if
see.
you add 1.99 to our figures, you get the plus or minus that you will get for every.
Was this a national poll?
It was a national poll in the sense that we selected, we covered all the regions in the country. And then we selected constituencies that are close to where our field officers are, our coordinates are, so that we can go back easily and repeat the same questions so that we can lower our cost in terms of operational movement.
So we have 16 regions in Ghana, 275 constituencies.
Yes.
Were you in all the regions?
Yeah, we were in all the regions, yes.
But how did you choose your constituencies?
Now, as I mentioned, we identified where our regional officers are and said to them that we want you to pick two constituencies that we can easily go around that difficulty. We haven't got a budget to really finance the logistics of moving from one south to the north. So, and because we want to track these opinions, one of the places that we can go back and track and track and track and track, so that we can see changing minds in the same location. For a period of time. So that was the driving factor behind the selection of areas we selected.
So you chose 2 constituencies per region?
With the exception of Greater Accra and Ashanti region, where we chose 3.
Okay, so some will say that you used convenient sampling.
You can say so.
So instead of using a purely random, where if you pick like Savannah region, you decide, you can put them in a ballot and just choose 2. You pick the constituencies closest to your coordinators.
Yes.
So that can affect the results.
But let's say that we are going to limit the interpretation to these areas. Just
Good.
let's grant
So you
it.
are not going to nationalize or you are not going to generalize the results.
Bernard,
Yeah.
even if you take into account the sampling error, you can only double the margin of error.
Okay, so let's look at it. Let's look at consistency. So you are saying that you will not generalize this, but let's
No, I think I will generalize it and it probably increase the margin of error.
No problem.
Yes.
So you have Nalerigu Bumpurubu for Northeast.
Yes.
Solatuna Bole Bamboy for Savannah. Tano North, Tano South, Ahafo. And Kwanta South. Krachi East for Uti. Joaboso, Sefiri also for Western North. Wa Central. Nadole Kalio for Upper West. Sunyai East, West for Bono. Atebubu, Sene for Bono East. On and on and on we go.
Yes.
The next page, Bando Hohwe, Tamale North, Tamale Central, Isikado Ketan. In Accra, you use Madina, I also was Gondome Kwabenya, in Ashanti, in Shaiso Kwada Susiami. Fair enough. Now, the first thing I found, which was interesting for me, so you have 2,400 people, right?
Yes.
You asked, is the country headed in the right or wrong direction? And this is the overall result that you came up with. 58% said no, 33% said yes, and 9% said they have no opinion.
Yes.
Then you asked whether they approve or disapprove of the performance of the president so far in the second term. Almost very similar results. 58% said no. This time 34% said yes, 8. That's quite interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there's a direct correlation between the direction of the country and then how people perceive the performance of the president.
Okay.
Now, once they were negative with the direction, then who is in charge of that country? And then he tends to suffer as a consequence of that.
Interesting. Before we continue, I noticed that in your 2,400, 35% of your respondents said they were MPP.
Yes.
28% said they were NDC.
Yes.
2% CPP, 1% PNC, 2% PPP.
And
a whopping 28% said they were floating voters.
Yes. Now, in fact, if you look at historically, which we'll do some survey to correct that, we believe that the floating voters outnumber all the voting blocks in this country.
What do you mean by floating voter?
People who said they don't actually vote one way. They change their minds as and when the time comes. They are not aligned with any particular party. So,
so you think floating voters
it's
are
more than that. Yeah,
really?
yes, it's close to about 38-40%.
You think so?
Yes. It has moved significantly. In fact, we did a poll last year in Swami. Almost half of Swami people said they were floating voters.
But you see, they may say they are floating in the sense that they don't have a party card. But if you look at their voting pattern, because the election itself, NDC and MPP are increasing their margin and the smaller parties are reducing. I do understand that a floating voter can vote for NDC or MPP. But if you look at the evidence that the two leading parties are getting stronger, how do you then say floating voters are becoming more?
Okay, you see, the way we ask the question in the field is different. We don't ask you which party do you belong to.
Okay.
That will give you all sort of answers. We ask you very nicely, which party did you normally vote for?
Do you normally vote for?
In an election.
Okay. And how will you, okay, so if I say I vote for which party I like, that makes me a floating voter.
Yes.
What if I say I always vote for MPP? That makes me MPP.
Exactly.
I vote for NDC.
Yes.
That makes me NDC.
Yes.
I see.
And they are very clear in their minds.
So you think floating voters are more in Ghana than we think?
Absolutely, yes.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, let's go on. So on the question of is the country in the right direction or wrong direction, 58% said wrong, 33% said right. When you disaggregate that for party affiliation, it's quite interesting. MPP voters, 57% says everything's okay.
Yeah.
But 35% says everything's not okay.
Yes.
But then for the floating voters, it's very similar to the NDC.
Yes.
On this result.
As a pollster, I think those should be your measure of how you are doing. People who are not aligned to any party gives you the objective assessment of what you are doing. In the US, they have what they call the independent voters. And when you use them as a measure, when they sway your way, you win the election. When they go against you, you will lose.
So anybody who wants to make sense of this should look at what the floating voters are saying.
Absolutely, yes.
So in terms of the right or wrong direction, 63% of the country is in the wrong direction.
Yes.
So that should be taken seriously.
Seriously, yes.
Then, do you approve or disapprove of the president? So far, 62% of floating voters said they disapprove.
Yes.
That then fed into the 58% overall disapproval rating.
Absolutely.
Interesting. Now, then you asked a question, overall assessment of government performance. I'll jump that. The other thing that I found was e-levy. We're just talking about e-levy.
Yes.
Do you support the introduction of e-levy? 72% said we don't. 23% said we do.
Mm-hmm.
And you said earlier in an interview that you were even surprised the figure wasn't higher because of what you found in the regions. Can you explain?
Yes. In fact, we were expecting the figure to be in the 80s.
Of those who said no?
No. But surprisingly, Ashanti region gave us a shock. Okay. Because 69% of Ashanti voters we interviewed support the e-levy.
69% of Ashanti voters support the e-levy?
Yes.
So that is what even made the thing 72?
Yes. And also...
So the other regions, what were the percentages?
In Bono, it was 47% against and the same percentage for. So it was 50 split in the middle.
For Bono. What about Greater Accra?
Greater Accra was 74% against and 22% for.
74 against?
Yes.
Greater Accra?
Yes. In Upper West, it's 99% against.
Are you serious?
Yes. And in Central Region, 96%.
Central Region?
Yes.
96% against.
Savannah, 93%.
The government is doing, I think this afternoon they did something in the Western Region on e-levy. What did the Western Region say?
The Western Region is 87%.
Against?
Yes.
What about Eastern Region?
Eastern Region is 85%.
Wow.
Yes.
So if it wasn't for Ashanti, the opposition to e-levy would have been in the 80s.
Yes.
When you disaggregate this for floating voters nationally, I think 77% were against e-levy.
Yes. When we look at the floating voters, about 77.5% of them are opposed to e-levy.
77.5% opposed to e-levy?
Yes.
That's very interesting indeed. And the other thing I found was that even for MPP, about 56% of the people said they didn't like e-levy. So they said they usually vote for MP but don't like e-levy.
No, don't like e-levy.
56%?
Nationally, yes.
Wow. That's serious. And then the other question I thought was interesting was you asked people, compared to 2020, which of the following best describes the standard of living? Has it improved, worsened, or has unchanged? 39% said their living conditions had worsened.
Yeah, right.
This question was asked in January this year.
Yes.
So essentially they are comparing...
22nd January we interviewed them. So
this is just last week?
Last week, yes.
Okay.
So compared to the year ago...
Which is then early 2021?
2021. Right.
And almost 40% said their condition had worsened?
Worsened, yes.
Wow. And then 30% said...
It's unchanged.
It's unchanged?
Yes.
The value is the same?
The value is the same.
So almost 70% have not improved?
No.
And then 27% said they had improved?
Yes.
Good. Then the other question that really caught me was, are you optimistic that things will improve in the next 12 months?
Now what we did was that for those who said that's worsened, we asked them, okay, if it is worsened for you, are you optimistic? Because there's no point asking...
so this was for those who...
For those who said, look...
Things had worsened?
Worsened.
And you asked them whether they thought...
Yes, it will improve in the next 12 months. But there's no point asking someone who said, yes, it's improved, whether he's optimistic. So we just jump. And those...
So these are people who thought things had gotten bad.
Yes.
And more than half of them thought things would not improve.
No.
But that's serious.
That's serious.
Because usually, people may be in a bad situation, but they will say, next year, or
no, I think they are looking at the dynamics currently within the economy, the fuel price hikes, all the issues that are coming up, and they frame their mind because of these factors that they are really looking at.
No, I thought that this was very serious, and I noticed, of course, more pessimism among the NDC voters, and also floating voters than NPP supporters.
Yes, yes.
So that's to be expected.
That's to be expected, yes.
I see. Then there was something you did on corruption. What were you trying to find out? I said, in your view, what do you think about the crisis of corruption in Ghana? What were you trying to find out with that?
No, basically, corruption is everyday topic that people have been talking about.
Yeah.
And they are linking the opposition of the e-levy to what they perceive to be corruption that is going on. Yeah. So once you are ahead of that game, you could make it easier for people to accept the e-levy. So we thought, okay, let's go and assess how people are seeing the corruption perception in this country, vis-a-vis all the things that they are hearing from the news. So some are perceptions, some are probably actual experience they've had.
So 43% of your respondents said that corruption was getting worse.
Yeah, it's gotten worse.
and then 29 said it is the same.
Yep.
So again, very similar to the economic sentiments in a way.
In a way.
So over 65, almost 70%,
Said
actually
it's
72% think it's either the same or worse.
worse, yes.
So that's not good.
No.
Wow. And then you ask whether you think the government is doing enough to fight corruption. How different is this question from the previous question?
Well, the previous question is just about the state of it in terms of their experiences of the hearing that maybe radio, television, and the cases that comes on. Just generally, just like the Afrobarometer does. But Afrobarometer, they go much into detail and give you examples. Here, we're just taking a snapshot of people's view. Now, in terms of what the government is doing, there are things that the government has done, probably passing new laws, office of OSP, even giving budget to run is an effort to fight corruption. Knowing all that they know, do they believe that the government is doing enough to fight the corruption that we are experiencing in this country? And overwhelmingly, 59% of them said no.
In spite of special prosecutor?
Yes.
Almost 60% didn't think the government was doing enough to fight corruption?
No.
Wow.
We didn't ask them why. Well, that's for another assignment.
But you asked them whether they trust OSP?
Yes.
And that one to 51% said they didn't think the OSP would fight corruption effectively?
No.
That's interesting. So do you trust the OSP will effectively fight corruption? They said no. And you didn't ask why?
No, we didn't ask why.
You are not interested in why?
No. That's for a different project.
I see. And then, but that's serious. So Kisi Ejabin must be wondering.
It really gives you the data point. If you are a government institution, what next can you do? What should you be doing to change this narrative or this perception?
Yeah, because if almost over 50% of the people think that you will not be able to effectively fight corruption, that is serious. Wow. All right, then you did, what else did you ask? So you did corruption. They don't think is doing well. They don't support e-levy. They don't think the president is doing well. They are not optimistic things will go better in the next 12 months. After corruption, then you started asking about voter priorities.
Yes.
What did you mean? What was the question?
I mean, we asked them, look, what do you want the government to prioritize in terms of 2020?
This year, 2022.
This year, 2022. What should you want the government to focus their attention on as a voter? And we give them so many options. We ask them to choose only top three. Economy, jobs, roads, health and COVID fight, food and agriculture, education, peace and security, fighting corruption, housing, water and sanitation. These were the options we gave them. And the top on the list, with 22% of the vote, was jobs.
That's the number one thing.
Number one priority.
They want government to focus on.
Followed by the economy, 20%, and education, 19%. Fourth is roads.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you think the education was higher because of the uncertainties around education around this time? Or it's been so for some time?
It's been so for some time. Even in the last poll that we did, I think education became second in the end.
Really?
It was, yes, before it was fourth, and then suddenly it became second in the race. I think it will continue to be priority because of the challenges that it faces.
Which is interesting because free SHS was supposed to be like the biggest plus for the government. If people now think education is something the government should work on, that suggests that there's a concern there.
No, you see, once a policy is implemented, is given, people know it will not be taken away from them again. It is there. Now, what issues are they seeing with the new educational policies and systems? That is what we need to focus and fix. And then it will no longer be an issue for the voters to prioritize because then you'd have solved most of the issues around it.
I'm surprised roads didn't play a higher thing because usually you hear people lament in the media about roads. Almost every week there's a story about fix our roads and stuff. So I don't know.
If you look at the sample that we picked from, most are remote constituencies with some maybe a fair balance in cities and towns. It's quite possible that when people are not used to good roads, those are given. So if this was an urbanized sample, you'd have had more people talk about roads. Yes.
Because then the rural communities, that's an interesting insight you're generating.
Yes.
which goes back to the sampling. You see, so as we're saying, anyway, if the sample had been a bit more random and there was a nicer mix of...
No, you see, if you throw these results against what we did in November, they will just shift one position.
By November, what sample methodology did you use?
We did, in fact, that was entirely simulated random sampling that we did.
In November?
In November.
You didn't choose the constituencies on the basis of...
No, in fact, we don't choose constituency. We choose polling stations randomly.
In November, that's what you did?
Yes. And that was a bigger budget and a bigger sample size.
And you're saying that if you compare the results to this one...
There's no much difference in terms of the structure.
Really?
Yes.
I see.
Remember the Corruption Perception Index by Afrobarometer? They had, I think, 35 people saying the country is heading in the right direction. We had 33.
So it's quite similar.
Quite similar.
But you cannot use results to justify methodology.
No.
I get you.
I understand that. But what we are saying is that, look, it makes no much difference.
Wow.
Yes.
I'll take one more slide before we go for a break. You asked, okay, so interesting. These are people who are voters.
Yes, voters and potential voters.
So if they are below 18, they should be ready to vote before 20.
We interviewed people who are 16 years now.
16 and above. So
yes.
they will either vote or they are voting.
Yes.
Good. You asked them whether they are likely to vote in the 2024 election.
Yes.
The results are quite interesting. 41% said they are very likely.
Yes.
37% says likely. So that together is almost 80% saying they will vote.
High enthusiasm for the...
7% is unlikely.
Unlikely.
4% very unlikely. And 11% not sure.
Yes. So that's quite interesting. I mean, this is very good news for all the political parties that people are willing to engage in 2024 elections. Much higher than we've seen in any of our polls. Yes.
So you think as we get closer to election, more people will get interested?
It depends on the dynamics. Some people's interest will wane depending upon who the candidate is on each of the tickets. So this number is dynamic.
This is the point of view. When we come back, we'll look at the final issue they looked at, which I thought a lot of people were interested in as well. They asked people about 2024 and asked between the people lining up for MPP and the potential people for NDC, who they would vote for. There was some very interesting findings there in terms of who these potential voters would prefer. They even did a comparison between some of the candidates. So they did Mahama versus Bawumia, Mahama versus Alan, and came up with some very interesting findings. We'll look at that when we come back. This is the point of view. It's a 2-in-1 show. My guest is Musa Dankwa. His organization is called the Global Info Analytics, and they've done a survey on Ghana and some key issues. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. On the point of view tonight, we're trying to do two things. In the first part, we spoke to Ken Thompson. Should we go to IMF or not? Is it e-levy the solution? He says neither. In studio, this second part is Musa Dankwa, Executive Director of Global Info Analytics. They've done a poll, over 2,400 people sampled, all 16 regions, and 34 constituencies, I believe they did. Very interesting findings about president's approval ratings, country headed in the right direction or not. People don't like the e-levy and all kinds of things, economic pessimism and all that. But then you also decided to look at voter preference in MPP primaries.
Yes.
I thought that was interesting. Why did you add that to the survey?
Oh, because everything now is about MPP primaries and NDC primaries.
Really?
Yes. And for us, we want people to really have a feel of what people are thinking about each of those candidates.
So what question did you ask about MPP?
Oh, if you were a delegate in an MPP primary, who would you vote for?
So this question was asked to both MPP and NDC?
Anybody.
Everybody. It wasn't just MPP people?
No.
Okay. If you were a delegate at the next MPP primaries,
yes,
which of the following would you vote for?
Yes.
And what did you get?
Right. We found
40% Bawumia.
Yes.
28% Alan.
Yep.
Dr. Akoto Free, Agric Minister, 3%. Boache Jaku, 2%. Jogate, 1%. Kofi Kunudu, 1%. Adani Mo, 0%. What I find interesting is the yellow one. 25% said someone else.
Yes, which means they don't believe in any of those names we've given to them.
But these guys are not delegates.
They're not delegates.
These are normal voters.
They're normal
who
voters.
could belong to any party.
Yes.
Maybe they didn't understand the question.
No,
maybe they felt that they like NDC.
No, you see, when you are choosing a flag bearer, right, the flag bearer would then be presented to the country.
Okay.
For final decision. So you must be listening to who the general public will find it easy to coalesce around.
I see.
It will make it easier for you to draw others to join you. Because I will mention that the two main parties have no numbers to win election on their own. So you need others.
And your point is that floating voters are so many.
Yes.
So they should look at how floating voters say.
Absolutely. They are very critical to this decision.
I'll come back to that. But 25% of the people said someone else.
Yes.
That was quite interesting. And then, what about NDC? Did you do the same thing for NDC?
Yes, we did.
And what did you get?
For NDC, we looked at His Excellency John Mahama against the name that we know that is currently going on.
Dufour. So you didn't add other people?
No.
So if you're a delegate at the next NDC primaries, which of the following would you vote for?
Yes. And 53% of them said they would vote for John Mahama to lead the party. And for Dr. Dufour, it is 15%.
I see.
And then someone else, 15%. And others said they will not vote at all, which means these are the guys who will sit out on election.
They will not
day.
vote?
Yes.
Hey, if
because he's made up his mind that Abano Onto. So he
but it's funny that that didn't come up for the MPP.
Yes, because the MPP really wanted to push people in the corner. But it's the most contested race we're going to have.
So when pressed, 40% wanted Baumia,
yes.
28% wanted Alan.
Yes.
And Afriye 3 and so.
Yes.
And 25% said someone else.
Yes.
And then for NDC, you didn't press them too much. John Mahama 53, Dufour 15.
Yeah.
You didn't add Joshua Alabi.
No.
You didn't add Spio Gabra.
Whatever name they have will be that someone else.
Which is 15%.
Yes.
I see. Then you did something you call Dr. Baumia versus John Mahama. Why did you do that?
No,
because you are jumping the gun, aren't you?
No, we're not jumping the gun. You see, you must know which of these candidates has the chance of winning. Right? If I'm a delegate in an MPP primary, right, who would I want to elect as a flag bearer? Sometimes you are a delegate because the party has given you that delegation power from the grassroots.
Yeah.
So whatever you hear in the grassroots is what you're supposed to let it reflect in how you vote in the elections. Yes. Assuming you have an open primary where all party members are allowed to vote, then you can have this feeling reflected in the.
So you did Baumia versus Mahama.
Yes.
And you did Alan versus Mahama.
Yes. So we see that, look, it's either going to be Baumia on the MPP side or Alan against Mahama.
So you chose, you asked people between Baumia and Alan, who will you choose?
Yes.
Then later you said between Baumia and John, and then between Alan and John.
Yes.
Good. So when you asked Baumia versus John, what did you get?
Now, in the Baumia Mahama race, 43% of voters prefer John Mahama to win the election in 2024.
And this is a mix of all people?
All people.
I see.
And then 37% of them want Baumia to win the elections. 9% want someone else, so the other smaller parties, you know. And then we have 10% that they will not vote.
I see. Yes. Which is interesting because the 10% say will not vote. When you go to your original survey, when you ask people to vote, it was around this.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so unlikely to vote and very unlikely. When you sum them up,
yes,
you're going to get this around 10%.
I think, let me just check. Whether they will vote or not, just give me a minute. I just want to check if your thing is correct. So, possible 10 or yes. So you said unlikely 7, very unlikely 4. So that's 11.
11.
Okay. And now you come to John versus Baumia. Baumia 37, John 43, and someone else 9. I will not vote 10. All right. Then when you come to Alan versus John, let me see what you get. Alan versus John, you got what?
That's where it gets interesting. Now, Alan versus John now is on 42%, 1 percentage point lower.
And then so Baumia was 37, yes, 38, 42, but it's the same thing.
It's within the post margin of error of 1.9.
So again, 9% says someone else, 11% are not sure.
Yes.
So it's basically, I think the lesson is that as of now, the people you sampled,
Yes.
if you give them either Alan or John, they still, Alan or Baumia, they still prefer John Mahama.
Yes.
Although your sample had more MPP people.
That is for me as a statistician or as a pollster a bit worrying if you are on MPP side, because if you adjust the population of MPP, NDC, and floating voters to reflect what it is now, and adjust that to the polling, what they call the unweighted polls, this number could be worse for MPP.
So John Mahama is in a lead. We don't know whether it's comfortable yet. That's what you're saying, because the people who were polled, just to wrap this up, the people who were polled, the percentage who said they were MPP was 35%, NDC was 28%, floating was 28%. And of those people, when they asked them whether they like John versus Baumia or John versus Alan, John still beat the two of them. So that's, I think, the lesson here.
Yeah.
Thank you for this. We will hopefully, if you do another one, we'll look at it again and look at the methodology as well. I'll be talking to Musa Dankwa, Executive Director of Global Info Analytics. And the survey is available online. You can read it if you want to get more insights. They did other disaggregations as well. Earlier on, we had Ken Thompson on the show. He says it's not IMF, it's not E-Levy, it's homegrown. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.